What you're hearing right now is what a healthy heart is supposed to sound. When I put my fingers on my wrist to check my pulse, all I heard was da-dun, dun, dun, da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. My heart was literally skipping a beat, and not the fun thing when you're in love and your heart is skipping a beat. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. And about 2 years earlier, which now is going to be almost 14 years ago, I just arrived in Toronto for the first time, and I walked down the streets in a full-blown snowstorm because I arrived in the evening, it snowed a lot at night, and the next morning I just saw this winter wonderland, and I thought, ooh, I really, really want to go outside. And everybody thought I was crazy, but I loved it, just walking down the street in the snow. And there I was in Canada. I came here from Germany. I just started an internship with a documentary film production company, because at that time I really thought I will become a documentary filmmaker. And after just a couple of weeks, I fell in love. I fell in love with Natalia. And my colleagues at that time were really surprised how this German dude just shows up, already scores a girlfriend in like less than a month after his arrival. And my intention never really was to stay in Toronto, in Canada, but now I had more than reasons to look for more opportunities to stay. And as you can tell, now, almost 14 years later, I'm still here, I'm still in Toronto. Natalia and me are married. We have a son who's almost 3. He just turned 3 last month, and it kind of all worked out in the end, right? But that moment when my heart skipped a beat, that turned out to be a huge turning point in my story. I actually was sitting in this workshop one evening learning how to do documentary producing. Again, my thought was I'll be a documentary filmmaker at that time. And while I was listening to the instructor talk about something that I now, of course, don't remember, I felt something in my chest. My heart stopped. No, like literally my heart stopped for a second. It skipped a beat. And it was then when I tried to feel my pulse on my wrist. And it really went ba-bum, ba-bum, then paused, then started again, ba-bum, ba-bum. And I completely freaked out. I just got up in the middle of the session, walked out the door, didn't even check if anybody was watching me. I just walked out. I needed to get some fresh air and just needed to talk to someone. Unfortunately, at that specific point in time, Natalia was in the Dominican Republic visiting her mom who was working there. And the closest person that I had were my parents. So I didn't really care about long distance charges. I pulled out my phone, started dialing the number, and only realized when it was ringing that it must have been about 3 a.m. in the morning in Germany. And my mom picked up, and the first thing that I said was, nothing to worry about. And of course, like if your only child calls you at 3 a.m. in the morning, something must be wrong, right? So I told her what was happening with my heart and that I thought I was having a heart attack and it was kind of hard to breathe. And I also then told her, oh, and my health insurance just ran out a couple of days ago and I'm not sure if I have the money to go to the emergency room right now. I guess now my mom was worried about her son, right? What I realized at that point was that really what I needed is just somebody to talk to, somebody I could rely on. Like I left my country behind. I left Germany, my family, my friends. When I came here, I didn't know a single person. So it was much more challenging than I thought to make new friends, especially where, like for somebody coming from Germany and Canada, I felt everybody was so friendly, so welcoming, but it really was on the surface. It was really hard to find some deeper connections. And it just I was struggling at that time. And of course, I couldn't go to my empty apartment that night as Natalia was not there. So I decided to stay with some close friends that lived nearby. And I told my parents, if it gets any worse, I will go see a doctor. I will go to the emergency room. We'll put it on the credit card and figure out all the health insurance stuff later. But turns out all I needed was some tea, somebody to talk to, something to take my mind off everything that was happening. And maybe all the thing with my heart was just a panic attack. I wasn't actually having a heart attack. So that was one thing that really changed the time, kind of my story, my journey after arriving in Canada. And today I want to tell you a little bit more about my heart. I forgot to press this button earlier. Second chapter, going into chapter 2 alone. Like I said, I didn't know a single person when I moved here. And I'm curious if you have ever moved to a new city. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. Which city did you move to? And when I came here, the only person I knew was this acquaintance from university. She let me crash on her couch for the first few days until I figure things out. But once I got my residency and started my own business, there was a lot of limbo in between. Like the time that I had the panic attack, I had already applied for my residency, but I was not allowed to leave the country. I was not allowed to work. I didn't know how long this process is going to take. Is this going to take a couple months, a year, 2 years? Maybe they're going to say no and I have to go back. So not having this strong social network was making this even more challenging. And the biggest question that I asked myself, well, I've left Germany to be successful. Like I had never really told my parents, hey, I'm leaving the country. I'm immigrating to Canada. It kind of just happened because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be close to my love, close to Natalia. And I saw a lot of opportunities for work here too. So when my hometown, actually you should look up the article again. My hometown did a newspaper article about my story, and it said in big letters, German emigrates to Canada. That's when I realized, oh my God, yes, I did leave the country, yet I had this quite a lot of guilt for leaving the country without officially saying goodbye. So now, as we're getting close to moving back, there's one thing that is on my mind, and that is failure. I'm about to leave all of the social network that I ended up building here, all of the friends that I made, that I worked really hard on finding people that are like me, people I can have deep conversations with, people I could show up in front of their door with a bottle of wine in the middle of the night and have it, like, share them my challenges, and they will listen. It took me a long time to get there. And now that we're leaving it all behind, in the beginning, when I first thought about moving back to Germany, just thinking of moving back, it kind of felt like I was moving forward to Germany, now moving backwards. The meaning is I failed. I was not able to be successful in Canada. And there's this really bad German pun that I will probably have to listen to a lot in the next few months, which is, du bist nach Kanada und dann war keiner da. Meaning you went to Canada and then nobody was there. But the truth is, there's a lot here. I have some really great connections, some really amazing experiences that really changed the trajectory of my life, the trajectory of my business. All the Ask Deep Questions cards would not exist without the people that I surrounded myself here. So because I care really deeply and intensely about everyone, this is quite emotional, thinking of now that I'm moving back to Germany, I'm afraid of losing all of these friendships again. Because when I left Germany a lot of years ago, there's a lot of really close friends that I would say were some of my closest friends that I really lost touch with. I kind of want to blame it on the time difference and that it's challenging to stay in touch if you can't like meet each other in person. But even thinking of what happened the last year and a half, 2 years with COVID, technology exists. Like we can easily pick up a phone, do video chats, do voice notes. There's a lot of ways we can stay in touch with each other. And it really showed me that the friendships that you invest in, they will grow, and the ones that you don't, they will slowly fade away. And maybe I need to make sure as I'm leaving Canada that I will keep working on the relationships, the connections that I'm making here. So what I decided instead of moving back, I'm going to be saying I'm moving forward, because this feels so much more like such a visual person. Like I love drawing out people's journeys. If you've ever seen my virtual facilitator training, you know I draw out a map of all the places that we're going. When I create an experience in person or virtual, I always draw out what's the journey that we're going on. And usually there's no like going there and coming back. It's always you start at one place and you get to another. The person I was 14 years ago when I lived in Germany doesn't really exist anymore. I've changed and grown so much. So has the country, so have the people who live there. So as I'm sitting today in our apartment where we're slowly to start to pack things up, I'm really excited about the change of scenery, about reconnecting with these old friends, about being closer to my family, about them being part of my son's life. And that's actually the main reason why we're moving. A lot of people have asked me since I shared this news that we're moving, why are you moving? It's going to be such a big loss for Toronto and I really miss hanging out with you. Well, the big 3 reasons are, number one, during COVID, both my wife and me, like we're self-employed. She runs her Colombian street food restaurant. I ran my business, mostly doing in-person events and workshops and selling my cards. We had to really figure how we can keep this going. My wife used to do a lot of caterings. With all the workplaces shutting down, no more meetings being offered. She was having a hard time and no income coming in. Same time, daycares were closed and we had to figure out, okay, we have our son who was almost 2 at that time. We need to stay home with him. We don't have anybody that we can have. We can't hire babysitters because don't want to get strangers coming into our house. My parents had a couple of flights scheduled that were all canceled. We basically had to divide up the day, and in the morning I stayed with Mika while my wife went to work for a couple of hours. Then after lunchtime, she would come home, take care of Mika, and I would work a few hours. And what happened in that whole COVID challenging time is, number one, we kind of got into a rhythm. My business started growing. My wife was luckily able to survive with the assistance from the government. And I built a whole new business that now is 100% virtual, which is something that I couldn't have done without COVID. So in a way, I'm grateful that all of this happened and sped up this whole process, because now I can move to Germany, still continue the same business, work with the same clients. The only difference will be a bit of the time zone. And then my wife, her business is closing. Well, not her business is closing. She is leaving the business. She's actually selling her Colombian street food restaurant to one of her employees who's been training with her for almost a year. So both of those things happening simultaneously allowed us to do this now. And of course, we want our son to have his grandparents around. Neither my wife nor myself have family in Canada, so family just became way more important in the last 2 years. And of course, they want to be part of our son's life as well. So it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins in this move. And I'm still going to be connecting with all of you who are based here in Canada. Please, let's stay in touch through the technology that we have available. I'll be passing through here as often as I can. I actually have the next trip already planned out because I'm attending the World Domination Summit again in Portland, Oregon at the end of June. And I'm already planning, I'll come to Toronto for a couple of days, either before or after on the way there or back, to spend time reconnecting with all of my amazing friends and connections here. So as we're wrapping up this, packing up this big move, this kind of, actually we're wrapping up this time in Canada and we're starting this big move, there's one word that we're focusing on a lot. And that word is experiment. We're framing our move as an experiment, and here's why. If we are packing up everything, like we're not putting anything in storage, we're selling a lot of things. If anybody's looking for stuff, let me know. I'm going to be selling all of the things that need to plug into outlets, screens and televisions and all of that. We'll be selling our furniture. All of that must go because we're really only taking 10 suitcases when we're going back. But at the same time, we're seeing it as an experiment, meaning if we move to Germany, realize we don't actually like living here as much as we thought, or we're having a big challenge just adjusting to the culture. Like after having lived in Canada for so long, for almost 14 years, I don't see myself as German anymore in the sense of I will have a culture shock when I go back. My wife will have a culture shock. She doesn't speak the language fluently. She doesn't know yet what job she's going to do or if she's going to start another business. So there's a lot of uncertainty around it, and framing it as an experiment, like we'll try this, but if it fails, we always can go back. Like I'll still have my residency, my wife, my son have their citizenship. We can come back, no problem, if it fails. So in a way that makes it even more exciting, because now we have this big adventure where we're actually going, we're experimenting, we're trying new things. We're going to live into a couple of different cities for a few days and see if we like it, if we like the neighborhoods before we decide to move there. So we're quite lucky that we have my parents that we can stay with for the first few months before we have to have things figured out. And maybe the part that I'm the most excited about, and actually let me see if I can pull this up real quickly, is a couple years ago I created this course called Find Your People, where in the beginning it was a group coaching program, then it turned into an online course where I basically shared, here is how you can find good connections, find not just surface level friendships and connections, but deep, meaningful friendships. I created this course that I'm now excited to basically become my own guinea pig. Like all of this is what I created a couple of years ago, and this video right now is maybe a start of adding some new content to this. Like all of the things that I talk about there, like figuring out your goals and intentions, curating your crew, talking about finding the people who align with your vibe. Where do you find them? How to go deeper beyond small talk and really think like a community builder. I'm really excited about the idea of creating my own experiences and bringing the people that I want to connect with more. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. If you want to follow along the journey, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Hang on, I think I have a button for that. There we go. Make sure you do that because I'll be starting this new playlist where I share before the move some of the things that we're going to go through once we arrive, some of the questions I'm going to ask myself. How do you connect with people, especially during COVID where you can't necessarily show up to in-person events right away? So thanks for being part of this journey. I'm going to close this video, but I'll leave a link to the Find Your People course if anybody wants to check that out. Actually going to have a bit of a discount happening while the move is happening, because if there's anybody else who's also currently moving to a new place or wants to create some more meaningful friendships, let's connect, let's support each other. I would love to see you in there. And if anybody has questions, let me know. I see there's a few people watching live currently. If you have some questions, we can jump into those. And I think, is it Grant that is here who's saying your friend moved you back to Germany and hated it? If you're thinking maybe of the same friend that I also have, who also lived in the States and Canada for a long time and then moved back, but just couldn't readjust to the culture and the way things work there, I have that fear as well. Like this might totally be something that that will go through as well. Like I said, I will have a culture shock. There's no doubt about it. My friend who I'm thinking of, she moved back to Germany at the beginning of COVID. So that was a really challenging time by itself. Right now, the cases are going up again, so I'm not really sure what's going to happen. But my goal, my thinking really is, I don't need to find a lot of people. I need to find a few really good, close friends that I can hang out with in person. And one thing that I will be continuing to do, which I'm doing right now as I'm saying goodbye to a lot of people here, is do these intimate small walks. I used to do them as dinner parties, but of course right now I don't want to invite people into my home yet. Some people can't go to restaurants yet because of vaccination status. So doing a walk outside is actually really nice. And the way we do it is we start at a meaningful location, like a place that I have some memories attached to in Toronto. So I start sharing a little story, and then we'll just have some deep conversations while we find our own path. We alternate at every intersection, who can choose if we go right, if we go left, if we go straight. So we never really know where we're going to end up. And there's so many synchronicities and surprises that have come up in the walks I've done here, where even people that lived in the city for a long time, we've discovered some new things. So I'll be excited to try that out with the new people I'm meeting there. And I even did a call earlier today because I'm asking, hey, who should I connect with? Who really values human connection and works maybe in a similar space than me, who is in Germany? That was super exciting, because that means that there are like-minded people there. Because most of my old connections in Germany, I would say we don't align in terms of the goals and the dreams that we have anymore. Like, those are friends that I have from high school. We've grown apart, and maybe that was also a reason why it was so hard to stay in touch when I moved. So if you know anyone that I should connect with, please let them know, send them this video. I would love to connect with some more like-minded people once I get there, meet them in person. And I'm wondering, there's still 4 people who are watching. If you have a question, first of all, let me know in the chat that you are here. Like, where are you watching from? I don't know, John, if you're still here, what questions do you have about moving to a new place, about our move, about some of the things that we're planning to do? And yes, I'm seeing another comment. It is hard to rebuild. I've done it before, so I'm not completely brand new to it. So I'm not as worried as I might have been previously. Although when I moved to Canada, I was so oblivious to the fact that I actually needed to have some meaningful connections, not just LinkedIn connections and Facebook friends. So I feel like I have a big advantage this time around. All right. I don't see any other questions right now. If you have more, leave them in the comments. I'll be creating more videos like this. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and hope that you will tune in again very soon. Bye.